Buddhism is a world religion founded by the Buddha in ancient India. Buddhists seek wisdom, meaning, inner peace, and freedom from greed, hatred, and ignorance. Mutually sustaining life, a Buddhist call to a troubled world.
O Ananda, the Buddha remains unaffected by the 8 things of this world: profit, harm, defamation, honor, praise, slander, suffering, and pleasure.
In our last show, we talked about the growth of Buddhism in the US. Today, we want to ask why. I believe there are 3 main reasons. The first is the healthy attitude of Buddhism when dealing with the negatives of life, such as old age, death, and losing. People clamor for youth, life, and winning, but there is reluctance, even taboo, in dealing with old age, death, and losing. Buddhism, on the other hand, sees them as a natural part of life that needs to be affirmed and accepted. When there is youth, there is old age. When there is birth, there is death. And when one team wins, the other team loses. It's so simple, yet so difficult to see them in that way. But by seeing them as a natural part of life, we're able to deal more effectively with them and even turn what we inadvertently perceive as negatives into a springboard for living a fuller life. Secondly, Buddhism gives much value to the personal understanding of the individual. This is because the teaching cannot come alive and make real sense without it speaking directly to our unique experience. We must test how it works in our everyday life. The Buddha once cautioned his disciples, "Do not accept a statement on the grounds that it is found in our books or because the teacher said so." The third major reason lies in people's attraction to meditation. Many find Buddhist meditation easy to do, therapeutic, and empowering. Sitting meditation in particular is a main practice in Zen, Theravada, and Tibetan schools, which have attracted the largest number of converts to Buddhism. Today, I'm pleased to have a guest to help us better understand Vipassana, or insight meditation, which comes to us from the Theravada tradition of Southeast Asia. Our guest is John Watts, who is practicing in the Theravada tradition, which is mostly found in Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. Hi, John. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Let me ask you, how long have you been practicing Vipassana, and how did you get started?
I've been practicing since about 1990, when I had the chance to live in Thailand. While I was there, I went to southern Thailand and was able to practice in the Thai forest tradition with a teacher named Buddhadasa, whose student now, Santikaro, teaches in Chicago.
Can I ask, Vipassana, what does Vipassana and also Samatha, what do they mean, and what is their relationship?
In Theravada meditation, we talk of 2 different styles, Samatha and Vipassana. Samatha means calming, and Vipassana means clear, intuitive insight. And so usually we do the samatha practice first, the calming of the breath and the mind and the body. And then under those conditions, we can engage in insight. So that would be insight into one's mind and insight to one's breath and body. And then technically we'd also talk about insight into three factors, which is the ever-changing nature of all phenomena, which we call impermanence. And then that insight leads us to the insight that attaching to any of these impermanent phenomena leads to suffering. That's the second insight. And then the third insight follows that, which that all ever-changing phenomena, if we understand ourself like that, that's not self. And that actually liberates us to act in the world as freely beings.
Well, I wonder if you could show us how meditation is done.
Sure. Okay, now when we want to get started, we want to find something comfortable to sit on, something like this. So there are a couple of different ways of sitting. We can use the full lotus, but that's usually too difficult for most people. So we can use the half lotus, which is one leg over the top. And again, you can use it this way too. Then there's also the Japanese style, which is called seiza, which is putting your legs behind you like this and having the pillow support you like that. Okay, now that we have gotten comfortable in our sitting position, we want to get our hands together. And we just want to have them in a comfortable place. Here on the thighs is a good way, except in the hot weather our hands tend to sweat on our thighs. So another way we can do it is this way, with our hands just here. Basically, we just want to have them in a comfortable place. Then the next thing is your eyes. Preferred way is to usually keep them 3/4 shut like this, with a line of sight off the tip of your nose. Now we can begin the practice. Another name for this Vipassana meditation is called Anapanasati, which means mindfulness, sati, of in-breath, ana, and out-breath, pana. And when we do this, we just bring our mindfulness, our concentration, which is called sati, onto our breathing, watching it go in and out. And we study the in-breath, and we study the out-breath. We study the deep breath and the shallow breath together. Not forcing it, just following the breath in and out. And when you breathe, we're not breathing deeply from here, like after you've been running, but it's a deeper breath from down here, kind of like you're drawing the breath down into your belly. But again, there's no need to force it, because naturally your breath will calm down the longer you sit. So there's another method that we called guarding. And when we become accustomed to the breath, we notice that there might be a certain place where it's sensitive, where we notice it. Maybe here on the top of the lip, or up here on the tip of the nose, or back in the nasal cavity, or perhaps down in the throat. There's a certain one spot that's very easy to notice. And so we bring our mindfulness, our sati, to that point. And we guard it like a gatekeeper. We notice when the breath passes it on the in-breath and when it passes it on the out-breath. And this guarding practice can also be very helpful for studying other points of what we call contact. So there's not just the contact of the breath in the nose, but there's also the contact of perhaps a pain in our knee or an itch back behind our ear. And these are places where we can also put our mindfulness. We can also put our mindfulness if there's what we think is a distracting noise. So that pain, it becomes a point of mindfulness. And the noise outside, it becomes a point of mindfulness. So what we thought was actually an obstacle becomes actually something that helps us in our practice. Now the final point here with the guarding is, and in general all of this Vipassana meditation is, the mind often wanders. The mind often goes off onto thoughts and feelings, and maybe even a song comes into our head. And the point is not to get too upset with oneself. Just come back, keep coming back to mindfulness. And that's the practice when we come back.
Well, John, thank you very much. That was very helpful. What do you gain when you meditate?
Well, you gain a number of things. The basic from the samatha meditation, we gain a lot of stress reduction, and I think that's why a lot of people meditate nowadays. Specifically, that can help with things like insomnia and sleep, especially if we meditate just before we go to sleep. On a deeper level, when we do insight meditation, and also we learn to come back to ourselves through the guarding, through the development of mindfulness, we learn how to stop. And that happens spontaneously during the day when we built up our meditation practice. So that stopping can help us stop when we get involved in various difficult situations, when our greed is getting out of control, or our anger is getting out of control, or we're just sort of lost in our life. We suddenly find ourselves coming back to ourselves, stopping, and cut back and stop from falling into our greed and our anger.
Well, thank you, John.
My pleasure, Ken.
It can be said that in this regard, one of the outcomes of meditation is the peace and calm in the face of the ups and downs and the good and the bad, as seen in today's opening passage. O Ananda, the Buddha remains unaffected by the 8 things of the world: profit, harm, defamation, honor, praise, slander, suffering, and pleasure. Thank you for joining us. In our next show, we will be looking at the uniquely American innovations with a focus on one of the largest and oldest schools, Jodo Shinshu.
We at Bukkyo Dendo Kyokai pursue peace and happiness for people around the world. We have published the Buddhist teachings into 41 languages and donated our publication to hotels and other facilities in 55 countries. We would like to share the Buddhist teachings with people around the world. That's our mission. Visit our website for more information.